going back to the point is you will fail. Like you go on a diet because you want to lose some weight. Guess what? You will be hungry at some point. It's part of you getting better, changing, adapting, and don't be afraid of the failure. Be afraid of failing the exact same way over and over. That's what I'll be afraid of. And the graph of any successful person, it may look up and to the right where you don't see the valleys in between the 2 points that are the high points. Be kind to yourself and have that discipline to fail differently every time.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Silvas. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
This is your host, Amy Silvas, and I'm already smiling from ear to ear and have a red face because I'm having so much fun talking to my dear friend, Marcos Torres, who's joining us today. You are in for an incredible treat. Marcos, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me, Amy.
This is exciting. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I used to read people's bios and I'm like, this is boring. No one wants to hear me read this. So please introduce yourself. We'd love to hear more about you.
Sure. And, I think obviously you know a lot about me. We've been friends for a long, long time.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think probably the most interesting thing about me, I would say, is that, about 17 years ago, I decided to pack my bags, move out of Venezuela, which is where I'm from originally, and move to this country to effectively just start a new life, hit reset. And, there's a lot of reasons why I did that. But what was most exciting to me was not, what I was leaving behind, but what was in front of me. And probably one of the biggest things was like the things that I did not know I was going to encounter. My plan was to, come to this country, go to business school, which is where we met, and become an investment banker. And then 2007 happened, or 2008 happened. And that was like completely out the door. Was not going to get a job when like 30,000, very experienced Wall Street people were without jobs. I had no experience. Right. So it's improvisation time. And, you're dealt a hand and you start, making the best out of that. So I would say that probably being very proud of being able to adapt at different things. And even recently, I've been going down the rabbit hole of natural selection. If you think about Charles Darwin, one of the interesting things about that is like, I feel like growing up, every time I would hear natural selection, survival of the fittest, you would automatically go and think fittest equals strongest. Right? So if you're strong, you can take it, whatever. But the reality is it's not the species that survives, it's not the strongest one. It's the one that's able to adapt the most and the easiest or fastest to the changing environment. So think about a chameleon. Like a chameleon's not trying to beat off whatever their predator is. They're just trying to be like, I'm just going to hide here and survive.
Yeah. As
I look back into the last 17 years of my life here in this country, I think basically I am a chameleon of some sorts that has been able to adapt to things. And being able to take whatever comes my way and either pass on it because you can't take it all and make the best out of the things you decide to keep. So I am that person. I'm an engineer originally, but I feel like once we get out of the numbers and the hard problem solving, I have this intellectual curiosity to understand things. And I've just been trying to make it fun and make it interesting for me and, this life. That's probably the best way to introduce myself.
That is so cool. There's so much to unpack there. I wish. Oh gosh, yeah. Where do we start? I love.
We can do part two. We run out of time.
Truly, we might need to. Well, you're very humble. So what is your current job title? And then we'll go a little bit backwards.
Sure. So I'm currently the CFO of Huntress. Huntress is a cybersecurity company protecting the 99%. So think about small and medium businesses that are so small that don't even have the ability to hire an IT person, to like fix your printer, fix your router when things break, let alone cybersecurity to get decent protection. So the company's mission is basically to protect those companies that are effectively under that cybersecurity poverty line. And we're very proud. We just announced a Series D round, raised $150 million. But probably the biggest thing for the company is we're the latest cybersecurity unicorn with a valuation, $1.5 billion or north of that. And we're about to cross $100 million in ARR. Probably the best thing about the story is I joined about 5 years ago, and this company was roughly 5 million in ARR. So being close to 100, I've seen a lot of things recently. So it's helping me grow a lot. So that's what I do these days. But I mostly solve problems with people. I don't really do that many numbers these days, honestly.
I just wanted you to bring that up because I want to contrast that to what you said. If you and I met in the fall of 2007, I didn't know at the time, but you had never been to the United States, right? Before hopping on a plane?
Yeah, I had never been to that part of the United States.
That part of the United States.
Yes. So I grew up mostly coming to the East Coast, but never to the West Coast. So, and it's a totally different country. I'm sorry, like this may be like, federal government, all you want, like LA vibes versus New York vibes is another country. But
packing up to leave your home of origin, your country of origin, to enroll in I think it was at the time, top 25, but I say top 20 MBA program by yourself. You didn't have family here, right? And I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to enroll in a full-time MBA program and see where it takes me. It's just so, we could talk about that the entire episode, but the admiration I have for you, and, I was in the same program and I'm a native born, American. The school was just a few miles from where I grew up. I had ample family and it was a tough journey, but to contrast that with where you are now and how you've made this life, we talk on this podcast about abundance. And I think you resonate. You and I had a book club where we studied money and investing, and all that's really interesting. But I love that you bring up these other things of abundance. It sounds like you've created in your life, because at some point the money thing gets boring and there's a lot more excitement to be had in life. Would you agree? Am I putting words in your mouth?
No, absolutely. And I think that the problem is, in general, money is sort of like the most familiar thing for us because we see it, we grow up with it. Like you can really see how it works very clearly. But what is missing for most of us, including me, a long time ago, was that mindset of how do you get it? How do you generate it? And to be honest, beyond money, when you think about abundance, it's such a personal thing.
Yes.
Right. Like every single individual has a desire and a need for abundance of something. And it doesn't have to be the same thing that the person right next to you. And we often miss the time to figure out what it is that we want and in abundance, and then start working with that. And to me, it's always been very much clarity of vision brings clarity of action. You have a vision of what it is that you want. You may be trying to create abundance of something that may end up being meaningless to you. So again, the mindset of how you approach that, I think, comes before, how many dollar bills you may be able to count at one point. And maybe if that's not what you want, then great. You have a stack of cash. And what do you do with that? You're still unhappy. And that's why we see so many famous people, many successful people, being very unhappy to the way they get to depression. I mean, so many, wealthy people with depression, with a lot of mental health issues, because they may have abundance of money and all the comfortable things that come with that, but they have a void, and they didn't work on finding the abundance of that thing that they're missing.
Yeah. Wow. So powerfully said. So what caused you, were you chasing this abundance that you had already a definition of when you were in your mid-20s coming to Los Angeles to get your MBA, or was this, what prompted that?
So yes, I was chasing the abundance for sure. And what has changed many times over is the how, right? Again, the market changed, the circumstances changed, everything changed. And it was just a process of the adaptation. Is you're trying something, you fall down, you do get up, but it's not just getting up. Great. You got up, but what did you learn from the last time you fell so you don't fall again the exact same way? That's the second part we don't talk. We talk about resiliency. We talk about, okay, you fall down, get up again. Cool, fine. Step 1. Step 2, what did you learn so you don't fall again? Try to fall in a different way, and you will. And that's the thing, right? Part of it is let's make sure that we don't ignore the mistakes and forget about them, because I think there's so much learning in mistakes. There's so much failure in success that we forget about them because we want to see that graph that goes up and to the right. It looks fantastic and you look like a winner because it sounds like you never fell. But the reality is, even the top athletes, it's not about the win-loss ratio. It's did you win the points that really matter?
Yeah.
So, but to answer your questions that went around a little bit of from it is, yes, part of the reason why I came to this country is my realization that my home country, Venezuela, did not allow for me to exploit what I thought was my potential. And that was a very personal thing. Like I thought I had some potential. Like I didn't know if it was true or not, but I wanted to try it. And I felt the US was the place to do it. And I was really willing to just let go of a lot of preconceptions, a lot of things, and just say, okay, how does this thing work? Again, before I go in just, 2 feet, ahead, it's just, what is it? How does it work? How do you figure it out? And to be honest, coming from a country that has so much bureaucracy and so many things going on, it's like you've been training with like, I don't know, 200 pounds on your shoulders, and then they lift 150. So not the whole thing. You're like, I can do this,
Yeah.
Crazy. So yes, it was the intent was there. The how I was going to do it, there was plan A, and then that didn't work. And then I went to plan B, C, D, E, and just, it keeps evolving.
Yes, we had the great fortune of graduating in May of 2009 when the bottom was falling out of the economy. And you mentioned you wanted to be an investment banker, which that industry took a particularly
Yeah.
hit. So
I mean, the worst place to be in 2009 that it was an investment banker was real estate.
yeah,
That was the only place where I could be like, yeah, or maybe, somewhere where you're dealing with credit, because really just became a credit crunch beyond, real estate. But the reality is there was only a handful of places that were worse than where I wanted to be. And again, adaptation.
yes, I love that you bring that up. So speaking of adaptation, how has your definition of abundance, if it has, changed over time? We talk about May of 2009, 15 years ago, we graduated from grad school. Now, you very humbly said, but you're a wildly successful CFO of a unicorn company. How has that changed? How has that evolved? Whether it's age, experience, life knocking you down, if it's changed at all?
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. We'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to silvuscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is silvuscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show.
What has changed to me with probably two things. One is how much broader, abundance is, because I agree with you. The very first thing that comes to mind when you think about abundance is like money, right? And all the things that you can vote for money, but you can really just summarize it down to money. But the reality is you look at things and then you realize that it's not all money. And, usually these type of realizations come after you cover that need. It's like Maslow's, pyramid of, needs, right? So it's like you're drowning, you're not thinking about lunch tomorrow. You're like, I'm trying to breathe the next 5 seconds. So it usually comes a little bit out of touch when you're trying to tell somebody who's drowning and be like, oh, it's not all about money. Yeah, but you need money now. So being very upfront about those things, I think at least lets the message resonate a little bit more for somebody that may be in a different situation. I think that's probably the first thing. So one is how much broad it is. Great example of how much broad it is. And it may sound cliche, but I think a great example is Steve Jobs. Talk about somebody who did not need money, had all the money in the world. The dude died of cancer, right? He tried all the treatment, tried all the things. Talk about somebody who could have tried just anything and money didn't get him that. Now, I don't know how he got that. I don't know if it was all the work he did. I have no idea. I didn't know. I haven't read much on him. But to me, that just gives me enough data points to be like, okay, abundance is a little bit more. And you can go a little bit deeper on abundance in terms of the relationships you have, right? Do you have a stack of cash where you feel lonely every day at night because all you do is just work for the money? Then that probably is also not a great existence. And again, it goes back to what matters to you. So to me, just that seeking of what you really want. And it's not one thing, by the way. The problem is like we also tend to think in like one thing or the other thing. It's a portfolio, it's a basket, right? And it changes with time, with life, with every decision that you make, these things change. And the problem is, as humans, we tend to think very serially, right? You think about thing one, what comes after that. You don't tend to think about the multiple things. And we also tend to think once and then be done with it. And Adam Grant has a great book about that really just kind of teaches you to kind of go back on the judgment calls you've made, or the opinions that you've formed, or things you thought about maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago, and you've sort of been operating based on that. And how has that changed? Like, would you change your opinion on that one thing that we were like, absolutely not, or absolutely yes? That evolution, that adaptation, even internally, super important. So again, going down to how it has changed is first a concept, like how broad it is and how much is internal and external. The second piece is how do you get it? Because again, if you talk about money, then fine, work smarter, diversify, invest, passive income. We can get into a lot of those things. And yes, that's a whole field. But how do you cultivate those quality relationships, right? Even if you think about, when you're a teenager, you just want to be friends with everyone because you just want to be accepted, right? You're at that stage of your life versus probably later on, most of those friends you don't keep up with because were they really friends? I don't know. And maybe later in your life, you're more focused on the quality of your relationships because life changes. So I think that type of abundance is more, what is it that you need in your current state now and how do you get it versus what you needed 5, 10 years ago, or what you're going to need 5 years from now, and having that foresight. What am I going to need in terms of abundance in 5 years, and start working on that. I think that's really where the mastering of this thing is. I'm not saying that I have it, but at least it sounds beautiful in concept.
I love that. And you're right. The truth is, if anyone tells you that they've figured this out completely, whether the formula or the journey, or even how it's going to change, because it will as we all age and have different experiences, they're flat out lying to you. And on this podcast, we talk about, we don't try to make, the pursuit of money and financial freedom to be taboo or, oh, you shouldn't focus on that. Rather, we see money as just the vehicle to the other parts of abundance, whether it's the time freedom, the geographic freedom, the things that you and I talk about. I hear you traveling all over and, doing all sorts of cool things that, yeah, the money can get you there, but you very soon realize, to your point, that once you stack a whole bunch of it and you go, well, wait a minute, I was told this is what would make me happy. And I talk to the investors all the time at my company. If I make 400, 500, 600K a year, and they're like, I thought this was where I needed to summit, but I'm working 80 hours a week and I don't have time for my kids, or I can't travel. So yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's where the real call it soul searching, or what I call it is, if you had $100 million in the bank right now, today, what would you do? And I think that's a good test for two things. It really removes that, okay, why do you want X amount of money? Because you're not doing this because you love it. Or maybe you do. And that's the thing. Like if you say, hey, I love my job so much that if I had $100 million in the bank, I would still do my job. Yeah. That's great. If not, if you're like, oh my God, I'll be out of here in the next 3 seconds, that probably tells you something about your job. Right. And if you're like, hey, you know what? I'll probably just leave my family behind and move to the other side of the world. Well, that probably tells you something about your relationship with your family too. So I think using those mental exercises to just be like, what would you truly, really do if you had that thing? If you remove that concern about money, then that teaches you more about you. And you may not be able to do the 100 million tomorrow, but at least it tells you what other changes you should be making to your life. And that probably makes you happier. That probably brings that abundance of happiness that may allow you to get closer to 100 million because you're not battling with all of these things. And the reality is every day we battle with a lot of things that just come with life, right? Like health and aging and kids, wife, or husband, whatever, like your car breaks down, your AC's not working, you get fired, like, your neighbors being an asshole, like you name it, right? Like all these things just happen. And the more spread you are, the less focus you have to even just stop. Like when was the last time that, anybody who's listening to this podcast when was the last time you spent 5 minutes thinking about something and not just I got to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I'm in 5 minutes, when you live that way, feels like 3 hours.
Yes.
And really all you need is 5-10 minutes to think about these things. So even just creating that space for yourself, again, it comes to the clarity, and the clarity brings that ability to know what you need to do next. And without that, you're literally just shooting in the dark.
That's really powerful because we can fill up our time, especially with smartphones. We can fill up every single waking second that we have. And I had a business coach once tell me that kind of designing our life is kind of like going into a restaurant, and we can't tell the waiter or waitress, hey, just bring me whatever, and expect that the kitchen is going to cook us, magically know what we want. We have to be very intentional and place the order, to your point of having that silence. What do I want? And really focus on that. And then the kitchen or the universe or God or even just your own skills will bring that to you. But you have to be intentional about defining what that abundance means. And maybe you're not quite sure. So being intentional about trying different things and exploring different areas of abundance to really create that. I love that.
Yeah. And I think the better part of that is also just being open to being wrong. I can tell you that 15, 17 years ago, even more, hell, like even before I considered, getting an MBA, I don't know if you know, but like for me getting an MBA, that was not my plan original. Like I'm an engineer. I wanted to get a master's in engineering.
Oh.
And then I realized, well, I mean, I'm going to go do that. And then if I want to keep going up, again, preconception, I was like, I'm still going to have to go get an MBA. So do I have to go through 4 times? It's like, I'm going to skip a step here. And that's one of the reasons that from our class, I was one of the younger ones.
Yes.
Because I was probably could have used a few more years of work experience before going into the program. But the reality is I skipped a bunch of steps, and that just got me closer to where I wanted, which was, okay, give me the thing that allows me to put what I thought it was my potential to work and actually see the results of it. And again, I think it's really good to look at questioning basically whatever path you set for yourself and be like, is this really what I want? Is this really how I should be doing it? Or is it just like my preconception? The second one is just be able to adapt, because again, my plan 20 years ago and my plan right now, like I could have never told like CFO, like software company. No, like I've been investing in real estate, I thought real estate was like the most boring thing in the whole world. I was like, for the entire program was like, who goes to school for real estate? Holy crap. Like, how exciting can a building be? Like, that's just boring as hell. And then you understand, you're like, oh, I'm actually super excited about real estate these days. Like, I nerd out on the thing. So being able to dramatically change your view on something because you prove your own preconception wrong, I think that's probably where the real edge is.
I love that. Not being married to your ideas and normalizing, hey, as I experience more, as I learn more, as I try more things, they might change. And it's fine if I feel differently than I did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever that looks like. I'm curious, Marcos, as I think about you as a person, I was thinking about, just what to talk about on this podcast. And what kept coming up to me is, obviously I'm biased because I've known you for so long, but how you treat relationships. I remember, listeners of the podcast know I lived with cystic fibrosis before a miracle medication came to the market almost 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been so long. I was in and out of the hospital, and I will still never forget you visiting me. Must have been 2008, 2009, maybe sometime in grad school. Yeah, you brought me a cupcake to keep me company while I was basically sitting in jail, the size of a shoebox, getting medical treatment. And, if anyone knows anything about MBA school, you're busy. There's very little time to even breathe, let alone, visit your friend in a hospital. And I know, you used to live in Arizona. I visited you there and you made time to say hi. In LA, we visited, we went to a football game together. You're very relationship oriented. It seems to me, despite how busy you may be or how many, because I know you talk to some very important people. You do some very important things, Marcos. But I'm curious, as a Venezuelan coming to the United States, comparing cultures, do you see that Americans kind of forego relationships or put them off in the pursuit of the almighty dollar? Do you see a contrast there? Am I kind of going down a different rabbit hole? I'm kind of curious on your relationship abundance perspective that you might have.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing is something I learned a long time ago is this African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And what's interesting is there's a lot of similarities between how socially you form relationships and how those relationships go beyond the setting. So it's not like, well, you have your school friends and your work friends and your other friends. It really all blends. And I think that's really where the value is, because we have a lot of facets as humans, right? And really that's where you really get to know somebody. So for me, it can be sometimes a little bit more intentional in the United States, like the concept of networking. Like that's not a thing in Venezuela. You don't network. You just know the people you know. You have a friend of a friend, but like there's no such thing as like I'm going to go to a networking event. Recently, you've seen those type of things because, in Venezuela, culturally, we tend to imitate a lot the United States, which is fine. But the concept of like, I'm just going to go to a setting and meet people that may or may not be interested in the same thing or not, but they're strangers. Like, you don't do that. You basically just meet people through other people. Versus here in the States, like, going to business school, like, they're so gung-ho networking. And I swear to God, I think they had like a networking 101, like this is what networking is and how you do it. And I swear to God, at first, I just didn't get it. I was just like, wait, why you're telling me how to meet a stranger and how do I do it did not make sense to me. And eventually it made sense as part of adapting to a new place, how you do business differently. I mean, we learned it. We went on a trip to abroad, either China or somewhere else. They're like, hey, this is how you do business here. So even just opening your mind to something that's different, something that's new, something you need to learn, and that you're probably going to suck at first. And I totally did, by the way. But eventually you because the problem is like, I feel the context was like, well, this is the person, let me know somebody, let me hire you. I felt that it was very rigid and very much just like, it felt almost transactional, right? Yeah. It was like, I don't really care about your person. I'm just trying to get a new job. So, this may be like my way to get there versus, hey, I actually really care about you as a person. And then you really start getting to know the real person, whether you're going to give me the next job or not. Probably not, but it doesn't matter. I like you. And I think just forming those true friendships, those true relationships, it's what allows you to keep the quality people. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's you spend the time with the people that you feel bring the most value to you and vice versa. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just understanding that not everyone brings the same value and you don't bring the same value to everyone. So it's a two-way street. Yeah. And it's not feeling that you're better or worse. It's just like you're a better match for friends, for the same way that you choose your life partner or those type of things. I think the same logic applies.
That's so interesting. I love that contrast. And yes, I can see, I can see it being an American thing, this networking thing. And then you also went to a university where, we're basically the Trojan mafia. We're basically raised. So you got kind of the hyper concentration part of that. But yeah, it can feel kind of artificial and forced where we all kind of know what we're here to do. And but I love that you mentioned, there's a time and a place and a kind of a quality to different types of relationships. And it's okay for it to be just professional and maybe a little bit more distant, or to find someone you connect with on some level and it transitions to a deeper relationship, a friendship, or whatever that looks like. I hadn't really thought about it that way. I think that's really insightful. That's very insightful.
Yeah, I think it gets lost a lot. And then, like you said, like in the chase of the $90, you're that job and whatever. It's just like, well, you gotta. It's the first thing they tell you when you walk in the door. Like 2 years from now, you're successful if you have a job, and the statistics are based on like who has a job within 30 days, 60 days. And it's so driven by that I think it loses a little bit of like the human part of like, do you don't want to spend 5 minutes with this person that you actually don't like? It's lost there. But anyways, you'll learn as you look back.
Yeah. One of my first bosses outside of grad school taught me this concept of the airport test. I don't know if I've mentioned that to you. So let's say you're on business travel with a colleague and you're at an airport and you are delayed 3 hours. It just comes over the intercom. Do you go, oh gosh, are you kidding me? Or do you go, okay, we'll have fun. We'll get some drinks, whatever. But those quality relationships matter, who we spend time with. I mean, I think you're in your 40s now, both of us. It has tremendous value. All right. So one final question, Marcos, as we As you look back at yourself 15, 20 years ago, imagining someone like you is listening to this, what advice would you give them, whether it's around abundance, whether it's around, I love that you bring up kind of being flexible and, or, feeling okay, failing, all of these great nuggets you gave us. What piece of advice for people that want to grow up to be Marcos Torres when they get older? What would you give them?
I would say really failure, honestly. I think we live in a world where, and I'm going to bring my engineering mind here.
Yeah.
We live in a world where everyone is comparing to the top of the very top of the very top. So if every day you're thinking about that, if you don't beat Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or whoever you think is a successful person you're trying to chase, and if every day you compare yourself with them not being that, you're never going to be happy.
Right.
It's just like, first is like the distance is so abysmal that it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Now, bringing it more close to day is, I promise you those people failed a lot as well. And I promise you those folks also got extremely lucky at some point. So ignoring the value of failure, the learning from the failure, and if you failed 300 times, that's fine as long as you're not failing 300 times the exact same way. That is a real key. And there's a great book that I recommend. It's called A More Beautiful Question. And it really starts with the guy that created the prosthetics for athletes to run, the one that looks kind of like a bow.
Yeah.
And basically, this guy lost his leg. And he was stuck with the prosthetics that they had back like 20, 30 years ago that literally looked like a foot. And he's like, it looks like a foot, but it doesn't work like a foot. Yeah. And he was just like, he felt like, I don't know, he had like 75 different prototypes until he got to this thing. And the whole thing is like every prototype got better, but he didn't stop until it was exactly what he wanted. He didn't know exactly what it was, but again, he didn't fail at the exact same time. Every prototype was different. So going back to the point is, you will fail. Like there's absolutely no, you just have to admit it. I've talked about it. Like if you're going to diet because you want to lose some weight, guess what? You will be hungry at some point. It's just part of it. You have to bear with it. And it's part of the process. It's part of you getting better, changing, adapting, and don't be afraid of the failure. Be afraid of failing the exact same way over and over. That's what I'd be afraid of. And the graph of any successful person, it may look up and to the right where you don't see the valleys in between the 2 points that are the high points. That's it. Just be kind to yourself but have that discipline to fail differently every time.
Amazing. It's almost as if failure is the portal in which you must go through to have that success. It is just 100%. A mandatory part of the process. And a lot of folks, maybe even school, at least in the States, teaches us not to fail. And by playing it safe, you're never going to get to that spot that you want to go. Failure is just part of maybe fail faster, fail quicker. I don't know.
It's both. I think it's fail fast, fail quick, fail forward. That's some of those things. And I can tell that, at Huntress, we work a lot on that. I mean, still being a small startup, we always want to fail forward. Yeah, okay. You failed, but you learn something and you're closer to where you need to get versus you failed and you fell basically on your ass, you didn't move forward or you fell backwards, right? So I think those things are super important. And again, yeah, it's probably the old, now that I think about it, it's the old, no pain, no gain. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, I think it's been interpreted in incorrect ways. And probably I even interpreted it in incorrect ways, thinking no pain, no gain is like, it has to be excruciating. You have to be a martyr. If there is, you don't have like just extreme pain, there's no worth it. No, there's a point where if it's still painful, you may be doing something wrong, right?
Yes.
So it's always have that critical thinking, but to pretend that you're going to go through life, which is something that can be very challenging, no matter what you do, no matter how you do it, no matter whether you are at the top or the bottom or somewhere else, like everyone's had a struggle. There's absolutely no reason why that would not true. Then the truth is, okay, what are you dealing with that? And how are you feeling forward to get over that and get to where you really want to be? But again, it goes back to like, you have to know what that is.
Yes. Amazing. Marcos, your story is so amazingly powerful. I'm so grateful to have you as a friend. I said the last question was the last question, but I've got one more that just came to mind.
Let's do it. I have the time.
Thank you. What abundance, what category of abundance do you want to add more to your life in the next year? What are you focusing on there?
Time for myself. So
Okay.
you can imagine, for me, work is 24/7. Like I can get a call at any point, at any time. And I've been doing this for a long time, but this company and my previous company, it kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
So it's something that I've accepted as something I want to do, but it's not necessarily something I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And to me, is starting to think about that foresight of if I set an imaginary line at some point in my life when I want to live a different life, just as fulfilling, but with different things, is what would that look like, and basically what would make me happy in a situation where I'm not working, 7 days a week, working nights, like what does that look like? And again, it starts with what do I want? And to get that, what kind of abundance do I need, right? It's quality relationships, because if I'm going to have more time, what do I do with that time? Do I want to, give back? Do I want to spend more time with the people that I love? It's basically getting that, because there's no one right answer. I'm probably going to have to get to that and adjust as I go.
Yeah.
But the reality is, what's next, right? Like it's not this, it's not now, it's not forever. What is next? To me, living in the future has always been a gift to be able to get ahead and start thinking about these things before they happen.
Amazing. Marcos, thank you so much for joining us today. What a gift you've been to me as a friend, to our listeners today. How can folks get in touch with you if they want to talk to you?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Amy. I really appreciate it. You're super honored to be in your podcast, and hopefully at least a few words that I said here may be helpful to somebody. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It's a lot of rambling, but the one nugget that help you out, that's all I hope to do here. And in terms of getting in touch with me, LinkedIn, Marcos Torres. If you look me up in the word Huntress, Huntress, you'll probably find me. Not a whole lot of companies with that name or my name, so that combo will get you there. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to folks. I mean, one of the things that you enjoy the most when you had some sort of level of success is actually paying it forward and helping people without asking anything in return. I've done what I've done thanks to people that were super kind enough and generous enough to give me their time and their knowledge as well. So that's probably the last advice, is find somebody who has a life that kind of looks like what you think it would be. Talk to them, and maybe they actually will help you get there. Probably the last piece of advice that I have for your audience.
Amazing. We should all follow that. I think that's brilliant. Yes. As we reach our hand up to be pulled up to our next adventure, reaching our hand down to pull others on that journey as well is how it works. So incredible, my friend. Thank you again so much for joining us today. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please leave a comment, review, and share this amazing episode with anyone you think would get value from this. And have an incredibly abundant day, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Silvas. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.